1. The weight of deceit. Ndundu was a simple man, a rolling stone that gathered no moss, always eager to lend a hand, sometimes to a fault. He had a heart of gold, but as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So when a seemingly well-meaning acquaintance, a smooth talker who'd sell ice to Eskimos, approached him with a seemingly innocuous request, Ndundu, never one to look a gift horse in the mouth, readily agreed. "Ndundu, my good man," the acquaintance began, his voice as smooth as butter. "I have a small package that needs to reach a friend in Singapore. Just a matter of spreading the weight, you see. Nothing heavy, wouldn't want to break your back." He even winked, adding, "A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and I'm willing to make it worth your while for this little favor." Ndundu, whose pockets were emptier than a politician's promises after elections, saw this as a godsend, a chance to kill two birds with one stone, help a friend, and earn a bit of much-needed cash. He didn't want to rock the boat by asking too many questions. After all, curiosity killed the cat, or so he thought. The acquaintance handed him a sturdy-looking bag, assuring him it was just personal effects, light as a feather. Ndundu took it none the wiser, completely unaware that he was holding a viper in his bosom, a ticking time bomb that would soon explode in his face. He traveled to Singapore, his heart lighter than it had been in months, whistling a happy tune, feeling like he had finally caught a break. Little did he know that he was walking into a lion's den. As soon as he landed, before he could even say Jack Robinson, he was swarmed by stern-faced officers. The bag, far from containing mere personal effects, held 5 kilograms of heroin. The scales of justice in Singapore are swift and unforgiving when it comes to drug trafficking. Ndundu, the fall guy, the sacrificial lamb, found himself caught in a web not of his own making. The trial was a whirlwind, a David and Goliath battle where David had no slingshot. Ndundu pleaded his innocence, swore on his mother's grave that he had no idea what the bag contained, but his words fell on deaf ears. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, they said, and the evidence, the damning weight in the bag he carried, spoke volumes. The verdict came down like a ton of bricks. Guilty. The sentence, a cold, chilling pronouncement, echoed in the courtroom. Death by lethal injection. Ndundu's world turned upside down in the blink of an eye. He was now in deep water, facing the ultimate price for a crime he didn't commit. A stark reminder that all that glitters is not gold, and sometimes a favor can cost you your life. Chapter 2. A father's final plea. Days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Ndundu was a shadow of his former self, his spirit crushed under the weight of his impending doom. Yet even in the darkest hour, a flicker of hope, a tiny ember of love, still burned within him, his 5-year-old son, Leo. Leo was the apple of his eye, the sunshine after the rain, the reason Ndundu still clung to life. His final request was simple, yet it tore at his soul, to see his son one last time. The wheels of bureaucracy, however, turned slowly, grinding like old millstones. Bringing Leo and his mother, Zola, from Kenya to Singapore was no walk in the park. It was a process fraught with red tape, a maze of paperwork that seemed designed to break even the most resilient of spirits. First, Zola had to obtain emergency travel documents for herself and Leo. This involved navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the Kenyan Immigration Department, where she had to pull out all the stops, using every connection she had to expedite the process. Time was of the essence. Every tick of the clock felt like a nail in Ndundu's coffin. Next came the daunting task of securing visas to Singapore. The Singaporean authorities, while compassionate to Ndundu's plight, had strict procedures to follow. Zola had to provide a mountain of documents: birth certificates, marriage certificates, proof of Ndundu's conviction and impending sentence, and assurances that they would not overstay their visit. It was like trying to thread a needle with a camel. Financial constraints loomed large. Traveling halfway across the world on short notice was an expensive affair. Zola had to swallow her pride and reach out to family and friends, passing the hat around, hoping that their collective generosity would be enough to foot the bill. Many hands make light work, and thankfully, their community rallied around them, understanding that blood is thicker than water. Communication with Ndundu was limited and heavily monitored. Every phone call, every letter was a precious lifeline, a fragile thread connecting a father counting his last days with his beloved son. The logistics of arranging a meeting within the strict confines of the prison were another hurdle. It required coordination between the Kenyan embassy, the Singaporean prison authorities, and various social welfare organizations. It was a delicate dance, a juggling act where one wrong move could shatter their last chance for a final embrace. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the necessary approvals came through. The journey was long and arduous, a real test of Zola's strength and resilience. But the thought of Leo seeing his father one last time kept her going. A beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. She knew she had to be strong for both of them. For even though the situation was as bitter as gall, she had to put on a brave face for her son. Chapter 3: A Hair's Breadth from Eternity. As the final hour approached, a pall of despair hung heavy in the air. Ndundu had made peace with his fate, resigned to the fact that he was about to pay the ultimate price for another man's sins. He had said his goodbyes, his heart aching with the unfulfilled dreams and the years he would never see. He felt like a fish out of water, gasping for a breath of life that was about to be extinguished. Meanwhile, back in Kenya, the police, spurred by a nagging doubt and a tip-off from an unlikely source, a disgruntled associate of the smooth-talking acquaintance, had been digging deeper. They say the truth will out, and in this case, it was slowly but surely crawling into the light. They followed the money trail, pieced together the evidence, and like bloodhounds on a scent, they finally cornered their prey. The real owner of the 5 kilograms of heroin, the puppet master who had so callously used Ndundu as a pawn, was apprehended. The arrest sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. The smooth talker, now singing like a canary, confessed to his crime, detailing how he had manipulated Ndundu, taking advantage of his good nature and financial desperation. The Kenyan authorities, realizing the grave injustice that was about to befall Ndundu, immediately contacted their counterparts in Singapore, providing them with the crucial evidence that exonerated him. However, time was of the essence. Ndundu's execution was scheduled for the following morning. It was a race against the clock, a desperate scramble to pull him back from the brink. The wheels of justice, which had turned so swiftly in his conviction, now seemed agonizingly slow in their reversal. The news reached Singapore like a bolt from the blue. The authorities, after verifying the evidence, acted swiftly. A stay of execution was ordered just as the final preparations were being made. Ndundu, in his solitary cell, was oblivious to the frantic activity that was unfolding to save his life. He was counting his last breaths, his mind filled with the image of Leo's innocent face. Then, the impossible happened. A prison guard, His face grave, but his eyes holding a glimmer of hope, appeared at his cell door. "Ndundu," he said, his voice low but clear, "there's been a development. Your execution has been stayed." For a moment, Ndundu couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. It was like a dream, too good to be true. Had the penny finally dropped? Had the truth finally come to light? He felt like he had been thrown a lifeline in the middle of a stormy sea. The news that the real culprit had been caught spread like wildfire. It was a testament to the fact that even when the odds are stacked against you, and it seems like the world is coming to an end, sometimes just in the nick of time, justice prevails. Ndundu had been snatched from the jaws of death, a hair's breadth from eternity. Chapter 4: The Cry of Freedom. The news of Ndundu's pardon spread like wildfire, a beacon of hope in a world often marred by injustice. In his prison cell, the weight that had been crushing him for months finally lifted. It was as if a dark cloud had passed, allowing the sun to shine through. He was no longer a dead man walking. He had been given a second chance, a new lease on life. He felt like he had been reborn, rising from the ashes like a phoenix. The day of his release was surreal. Stepping out of the prison gates, blinking in the unfamiliar sunlight, Ndundu felt like he was seeing the world anew. The air smelled sweeter, the colors seemed brighter, and the sounds of the city were a symphony of life he had almost lost forever. He took a deep breath, a long, soul-cleansing inhale, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he felt truly free. Waiting for him was Zola, her face etched with relief and joy, and little Leo, who ran towards him with open arms, his small voice crying out, "Baba!" The embrace was long and tight, a silent testament to the ordeal they had endured and the unbreakable bond that held them together. Tears flowed freely, tears of relief, of joy, of gratitude. It was a moment that words could not capture, a feeling as profound as the deepest ocean. The journey back to Kenya was filled with quiet reflection. Ndundu had been to hell and back, and the experience had changed him. He had learned a harsh lesson about trust and the importance of looking before you leap. He knew he had been as blind as a bat, and he vowed to be more discerning in the future. Back home, the community welcomed him with open arms. There was a huge celebration, a feast to mark his return and the triumph of truth over injustice. People came from far and wide, bearing gifts and sharing in the joy. Ndundu became a symbol of hope, a living testament to the fact that even when you're down and out, and it feels like the world is against you, there's always a chance for redemption. Ndundu's cry of freedom was not just his own. It echoed the sentiments of all those who had believed in his innocence and fought for his release. It was a victory for justice, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the truth will eventually prevail. He held Leo close, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. He had been given a second chance, a chance to watch his son grow, to live a life he had almost lost. He knew he had to make the most of it, to seize the day, for he had learned the hard way that life is as precious as gold and should never be taken for granted. From that day on, Ndundu lived his life with a newfound appreciation for every moment, always remembering the weight of deceit and the sweet sound of freedom's cry.